from the OG Living Studios in sunny South Florida via Nashville, Tennessee. Heard all over the world on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your streaming content. It's the Nashville Hype with your host, Paul King.
Everyone listening all over the world, it's the Nashville Hype, and I'm your host, Paul King. Today I've got Rissi Palmer joining me. Rissi is a musical artist that's played the Grand Ole Opry 9 times, and she's going back for more. She also hosts her own podcast called Color Me Country on the Apple Network. She's done 50 episodes already, and it's a raging success. We talk about those things and more on this podcast, so let's get started. So on August 12th, you're going to be on the Grand Ole Opry for the 3rd time. Is that right?
Oh, I didn't know they announced it already.
Oh, it's all. I found
it's on the website.
I found it on a website, and I was like, "Holy smokes, she is coming back to the Grand Ole Opry!" And I got to say, while I was doing a little bit of research just to find out what all you've been doing, I saw the clip from the first time that you were on the Grand Ole Opry back in 2007, and I cried.
Oh. That was awesome. So this will actually be, I believe this is my 9th time on the Opry, if I'm not mistaken.
Your 9th?
Yeah, because I used to do it when I lived in town back in the early 2000s. I would get the call, to come in and do like the Tuesday or something like that. So like this will be my 2nd time in the last 2 years. But yeah, I believe this is like 9th.
That is crazy. Now, this is a Friday night show, and what's interesting about that is, do you expect them to invite you to become a Opry member?
At some point?
Well, I'm not. On August 12th, it seems like that you're going to become invited. I don't know. I grew up with Eddie Raven, and Eddie Raven played the Opry 200 or something times, and I was always at the Grand Ole Opry. And it seems to me, I want to recall, and I don't want to get any hopes up because I don't have any inside information, but it seems to me, and I want to recall, that when it's a Friday night and it's a special guest like a Rissi Palmer, they tend to do an invite.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It would be awesome.
Right.
It would be amazing.
What would your reaction?
That would be a dream.
Yeah, let's just pretend for a second. What would your reaction be? Can you even fathom your reaction?
No, it would just be like, at one moment I'm standing there composed, and then the next minute I'm like a puddle.
Yeah.
Just a big puddle.
Right.
And and everyone's trying to like lift me up because I can't stand, and like it would look like a comedy sketch, honestly, because right? I think I would just be like,
I've seen some of those comedy sketches, and and they're not planned. Whenever somebody gets invited to the Grand Ole Opry, first of all, just to play is an honor, right?
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
Just to stand in the circle of the Grand Ole Opry and perform for all of these people and people all over the world on Circle Television, and that's something. But when they actually ask a person, I've seen people turn into puddles. Yeah,
no, it would be a hot mess.
Yeah,
it would just be a hot mess. That's pretty much what it would be.
Well, I am praying that actually does happen. There's no telling if it will or won't, or maybe you have to play 19 more times. Jamie Johnson was just inducted into the Grand Ole Opry, and it took him 19 years.
Yeah.
To do it. And I mentioned Eddie Raven. He's kind of my godfather. I mean, I call him my godfather in the sense that he raised me for a number of years.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He had 18 top 10s, 8 number 1s, and big songwriter. Probably will go into the Songwriting Hall of Fame, hopefully, before too long. I think he's been nominated a few times, but he wanted to be an Opry member for my entire life. And I don't know where that stands, but it did take Jamie Johnson 19 years. On the flip side of that, it's taken other artists one album. Yeah,
it just really depends. You're kind of at the whim of
the board and the people who
the board.
Yeah, the board and the people who vote on something like that. Yeah, and it's challenging. I mean, we both know the music industry pretty well, and since we're talking about the music industry in the sense of the board, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
So you came out with what I would consider a hit record overall, and I thought, man, this girl is really going to go places. And then the record label that you were on decided to kind of take over what you were going to do in your own career, and decided to have you release a song called No Air.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, for people that don't know the story, tell them the story. First of all, you go from Country Girl, which is, that's obviously a hit. I think it charted, right? Did it chart?
Yeah. That was the song that got on the charts. It's not ironically, the highest charting song is No Air. But
is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
my
wow.
highest charting song is No Air.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, irony of ironies, right?
Right, because it just came out of nowhere at the time, and I even thought to myself, like, what?
What?
Yeah.
Well, it was a collective what from all of us as well. Okay, so just to give your listeners context, I was signed to an independent record label called 1720 Records. And in 2007, we released Country Girl, which is my first single ever. And Paul, you were one of the first publications to ever talk about me, to talk about the music, any of that. And we were forever friends.
Yeah, just so the listeners do know, Rissi is a superstar. If you've not heard Rissi Palmer and her music, I have always known that she's a superstar. And a few years ago, Rissi, we'll go back to that story of the record label and stuff. But a few years ago, somebody asked me, how did you get so involved in promoting people of color and things of that nature? And the truth is the only answer that I had was I was on MySpace one day, and I had started the Nashville Hype. And I was looking for a great artist, and because that's what the whole thing was all about, to find artists. And I actually had 2 tabs open, and no offense to white, blonde-haired girls, but I was clicking between the 2, and I got confused as who was who. I couldn't figure out. I was like, is that the one that I was, or is that other one the one I was thinking about? Well, lo and behold, somehow, and this is probably 2006, maybe early 2007, I'm not really sure the timeline, but lo and behold, this voice comes up, and it's Rissi Palmer. And, back in the day, it used to be really important for radio to choose a voice that sounded different from everything else on the radio.
You ready?
Right? And so what happened was I heard this voice. It was Rissi Palmer, and I went, oh, my God. I've got to get in touch with this girl. And I don't even think at the time I knew I had any idea. Rissi Palmer was a person of color. I just heard the voice, and I went, yeah, we've got to get a hold of this girl. And so that's pretty much how it happened that I became a supporter, and I've always been a supporter, and
you have.
I love her. So, and that's just for the listeners of the podcast. But going back to the record deal and No Air,
I was signed to this label, and midway through, and it was a bunch of independent artists. Like, they had a rap group, they had a soca band, and they had like a pop artist, a male pop artist, and we had been the label had been acquired by Universal.
Oh, okay.
And so one of the first things that they said was they looked at all of us artists, and tried to figure out like what potential they had as far as, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, they just were looking for ways that, Universal could enhance our situations, each of our individual situations. And so with me, they were just like, well, Rissi has a lot of potential to cross over, and so let's explore that. and they decided that I needed a country song. I needed to do a song that had pop crossover feel.
Okay.
And so we started listening to a bunch of different songs and talking about songs. And I personally, I kind of wanted Unbreak My Heart.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great song.
Like, yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah.
And it's, it's timeless, and it's a great song. And so that was my vote.
Right.
And it was actually, we had talked to Paul Worley about doing the production for it. And it was also his vote. And then,
and he's a great, for the listeners, just real quick, for the listeners, Paul Worley is a great producer in town.
Oh my gosh.
He's produced everything.
Yeah, Dixie Chicks, Lady A.
Right.
Yeah, everybody. So anyway, we had meetings, and there were meetings and discussions about,
Nashville.
as record labels have. Yes,
right.
Lots of meetings. And there's a meeting about the meeting.
Right.
And they decided, Universal kind of made the decision that it should be No Air, because No Air was at the time climbing the charts, and it was Chris Brown, and they had control of the publishing on that.
Okay.
And so naturally they chose a song that they controlled the publishing.
Oh, right.
And so we killed my current single at the time, which was Hold On To Me. Mm-hmm. Which was, slow and steady climbing the charts.
Right.
They killed it. And we went into the studio, and Paul at that point was working on another project. And so I ended up working with Nathan Chapman.
Oh, yeah. He's good, too. He's very good.
Yeah. Nathan is Taylor Swift and countless other people.
Right.
But anyway, Nathan and I went into the studio, and we did No Air. And then, I had to shoot a video for it and all that. And this was kind of the beginning of the end. That's why that song is kind of bittersweet to me, because didn't really want to do it. Mm-hmm. No offense to the song. It wasn't the song that I wanted to do. And, we shot this very expensive video.
Right.
In Turks and Caicos that I didn't want to do.
Right.
And, and then the song started climbing the charts, and at the same time, I was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, it was the beginning of my realization that I didn't want to be on the label, that I didn't want to continue on the way that we were going, the way that things were going.
Right. And people don't understand. You and I met at a coffee shop, maybe, several years later, maybe not even a year later. What people don't really understand is the artist will pay for their own career. And so at the end of the day, you actually owed the label money for them making the choice for you to use No Air. And to go and spend an extravagant amount of money to shoot this video. And like in the back of your mind, you're going, okay, I'm paying for all of this, and none of these choices are my choices.
Right. Yeah. And it just seemed counterintuitive. It's like, I don't want to do any of this stuff, and yet I'm being made to do it, and then I have to pay for it.
And then you have to pay for it, right? Because all they do is, labels at the time, and it's still the same way. It really hasn't changed very much, but all they do is front you the money for your career, but the artist pays for the career over time. And so you ended up leaving that label owing some money.
Well, what ended up happening was I found out that they were having financial trouble, and
even after the buyout from Universal, the label was still having financial.
Well, so because they didn't. He spent it because he started signing people. Oh, like he signed Jamie O'Neal shortly after that.
Yeah, and she's fantastic. She's been a friend for a long time.
Budget for her.
Yeah,
she's amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
And signed, they did some other signings, and that money was gone. And so I found out that like my band hadn't been paid.
Oh no.
And so I had to come out of pocket and pay them. And it was just like, well, if I'm paying for all this stuff, then like, why am I not able to call any shots? Like, why am I not able to have an opinion?
Right.
And so I was told another decision that they made was another decision that was made on my behalf was that they wanted to, rather than record a new album, they wanted to re-release my first album and just tack on a couple new songs, which would mean that I wouldn't have an advance.
Right.
And and
right, because
it would count. It wouldn't count as a second record on my record
on your record deal. Yeah, so there's two strikes about that, and for listeners, it's the Nashville Hype, kind of with Rissi Palmer explaining how the record industry works. The record industry works by they give you a contract, and you have a certain amount of albums that you have to fulfill in that contract. And for every album that you make, they give you an advance on that. And most of the time, an artist will live on the advance in addition to everything else that they're doing, the recording, producing, the musicians, and everything. And so they really gave you two strikes at that point. If they're going to re-release the album, then you've got two strikes already.
Exactly. And so, I mean, aside from the fact that, like, just personally and professionally, it was becoming a very stifling, quite frankly, toxic environment. And so I made the decision to, and this was at the time when I had a television pilot that was about to air. Mm-hmm. I had just signed a modeling contract and all these things. I decided to walk away. And so I filed bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. And they disputed my bankruptcy, and it turned into a trial. Oh,
it turned into a court case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That went on for about a year.
Yeah. So you're never going, or this is a question actually. I said you are never going to, but are you ever, or would you ever sign with another label, major label?
I would sign under very different circumstances.
Yeah.
If it was a situation where, number one, I got to lease my music and not completely sign over my masters, and they only utilized them for a certain amount of years,
right? And
then everything reverted back to me, I would consider that.
Okay.
But
are you happy as an independent artist? I mean,
I am.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have other people's money. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like, that's awesome. But no, I really I enjoy. I used to hate it. I'll be 100% honest with you. I hated it in the very beginning. It felt like punishment.
Yeah.
Because you have to do everything.
Right.
You have to do the marketing.
There's work.
Have to do your social media.
Right.
Work.
And there's work involved, and that's so funny because I used to have a songwriting buddy, and for him, rest in peace. But I went to see him at a show one time. And every time that he got off the stage at the show, he would come and he would sit down with all of the 20 people that had come to see him, which was his friends. And I told him, I said, what are you doing here, man? You got to go work this room because you're never. And it took him 10 years to get a record deal. And he finally got one with Broken Bow, and they released an album, But even at the record release party, he came over and he sat right down at the table with his wife and everybody that was there for him, and I'm like, you still hadn't learned anything in 10 years, and so I can imagine that you had to really put process together and learn to do everything as an indie now, right?
Well, yeah, and it was a trial by fire process. I had to do things. Thankfully, I paid a lot of attention when I was signed to what they were doing and what the strategies were, and I was very much involved in the planning processes of all this.
Right.
And so I knew the general ideas of how to get a record out, what you're supposed to do. I had a leg up in that respect, but actually like the execution of all of it, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things to remember. And, we wasted money and did a lot of dumb things. And, in the process, kind of learned how to do it the right way.
Yeah. Now, when you did go indie, you didn't have a team? I remember, or at least I want to recall that you told me that the people working with Mickey Guyton now at CAA used to work with you. I want to recall that.
Yeah, my agents at CAA were when I left Nashville, like that was pretty much the end of my deal with CAA. And
I mean, how does that work? Because you've got a pilot going to TV, you're signed as a model, you still have music somewhere on the radio. Does CAA just go, oh, okay, well, you're out of your record deal and you're moving to North Carolina, so we'll see you later and good luck? Even before I moved to North Carolina, because I was in Nashville for 6 months before I even got married. And so, like, after I met your husband.
The trial ended, it's like before I got married and before I moved, I was in Nashville, and everybody just was like, I think everybody just was like, oh, okay, she's done. And so, like, everybody was just done. Like, I literally, Paul, I'm not kidding, there were no goodbye conversations. It was just that nobody called me back. Like, that was just the way it went.
That is crazy. That is absolutely insane. Now, it's believable, too, by the way, because that's kind of how it works from time to time. Are you working with those people again? I mean, like, are you represented by CAA once again? Because you're hot as fire right now. You've got so many things going on, I can't even keep up with what's happening in Rissi world. Oh, no? No,
I don't have a manager. I don't have an agent. None of that. The only person that I still work with from that time is my publicist.
Yeah,
that's it.
So Mitzi,
Shotzi.
Yeah, Shotzi. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So how in the world, with no manager and no agent and no one working with you, how did you end up hosting your own Apple podcast called Color Me Country? How did that happen?
So through a series of coincidences, which aren't really coincidences, but okay. So beginning of 2020, before the pandemic, this was around the time that Old Town Road had come out, and so everybody was doing these think pieces about people of color in country music. Mm-hmm. And I just noticed how incomplete the information was.
Oh, yeah.
And then going even further back than that, one of my best friends for years had been telling me that I needed to do a podcast. Like, you need to do a podcast about all this stuff that you know, like the music business and like the artists you know and the executives you know and like all that. Like, it'd be really good. And I would just put her off because I was just like, I don't know when I'm gonna have time to do that, and I don't think anybody's gonna want to hear that. So I don't know. So, for years she's just been saying Rissi, like, all the time. So back to 2020, I noticed all this information was incomplete, and it bothered me. And so I was just like, I want to do something about it. And so one day I just typed up this thing on Twitter, and it ended up, people started retweeting it and commenting and adding to it and that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, so people are interested in this.
Right.
And then fast forward, then COVID, and then we're in the shutdown, and all my gigs are canceled for the year. Right. I just put out a record.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, great. So
yeah, what do we do now?
Yeah, nothing's going to happen with this. And so, like, I have, at the time, I had a 9-month-old and I had a 9-year-old. And so I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? So I just was like, this is a good time to have these conversations. Yeah. And to document this moment, and also to document, like, these people's stories. Right. So I just started calling people that I knew. Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you how you got your guest. How do you decide your guest? And
Yeah. So in the very beginning, it was just like, get everybody, just get everybody that you knew, and like all the artists that you're friends with.
Kind of what I'm doing. I'm doing right now. I mean, thank you so much for being on here. That's exactly what I did. I literally have written 90% of the people that I know in the industry.
Yeah.
To be a guest on the show.
Yeah, it was a great place to start, and then once I made it through all the people that I knew personally, then I just started hitting up people. I had a form letter. I would just copy and paste. And I'm like, hey, I'm Rissi Palmer.
Right.
And they had my website. And I was like, I'm working on this project. I'd love to talk to you.
Were you attached to Apple at the time? I mean.
No. This was all myself. And so I started doing this the second week of March in 2020. By June of 2020, I had done 24 episodes, like 24 interviews. Wow. And I started editing the first one, and I was going to put it out. I was going to put it out myself. Yeah. And my husband and I started working on it. And then what happened? So I met a podcaster by the name of Kelly McCartney on Twitter. And we just started talking like over the shutdown, and like Kelly is hilarious. And we align in a lot of ways, like philosophically and musically and that sort of thing. And so we became kind of fast friends. Okay. So Kelly invited me to come on the podcast that she was hosting at the time. And on the show, I talked about how I was working on this show called Color Me Country. Right. And that I was, I was a couple weeks away from the premiere. And from that conversation, it hit like the New York Times picked it up, and like they were like, Rissi Palmer's working on a new. Oh, wow. Like, okay. Oh, wow. And so Kelly hit me like a week after we did the show, and she was just like, so I am going to, I just wanted you to know I have some friends that are going to reach out to you today. And I said, okay. Okay. And it turned out her friends were Apple Music. Oh, wow. I was like, oh, okay. And so, so they loved I had a meeting with Apple. It literally went like this. The email came in on a Thursday. We had a meeting on a Friday. I had a contract that Monday. Oh, wow. And we were in pre-production for the show that next week. Holy smokes. Now, is there a whole team working on this show? I mean, does Apple provide like engineers and things of that nature and studio time and all of that? So I have a 3-person team. I record all of my audio at home. I do the show remotely for now. Like I'm in North Carolina. I've done a couple shows from the Apple studio in Nashville, but mostly I do it here in Durham. I have 2 great producers, and then I have a engineering producer. This is so crazy and you still don't have a manager, and you still are not represented. No. Not at all. And you're doing it yourself. Now, we started this show with talking about going to the Grand Ole Opry. Did they just call out of the blue? Is that how? And did they just email Rissi, or how does that work? Well, they talked to Shotzi. Like Shotzi has a really great relationship with them. So yeah, that does make okay. So she's doing publicity and a little bit of managing anyway. She, people know Shotzi and I have worked together for almost 15, 16 years. Yeah. So, they call her and they're like, hey, is Rissi available on such and such date? And Shotzi is the one. So being a podcast host yourself, do you find it now that you've done it, and I don't know how many episodes you've done, but it sounds like you've done 1,000 million. 50. We're at 50 right now. Are you serious? 50? That's crazy. Yeah, I know. So do you find it very hard to switch from interviewer to like put your interviewer cap on and then switch into something like this, which is, it's not an interview. This is 2 friends talking, really, is what it is. But, yeah, we're having a conversation. Yeah. Do you find it hard to do that though? Because
I sometimes do. I mean, I had my radio show, and I often found myself wanting to be interviewed, or rather than doing the interview or whatever.
No, you know what? The way that I approach the show is very much how I approach doing interviews. Like we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I have I have to do research so that I know, what we're going to talk about.
So you were a part of the Power Women in Country Music, and I went exhibit, yeah. And I went over to the website, and they have a really funny quote on there. It says, "From international superstars including Dolly Parton, Roseanne Cash, Leanne Rimes, Shania Twain, and Taylor Swift, to contemporary artists such as Mickey Guyton, Rissi Palmer, etc., etc." And I looked at that and I thought, Taylor Swift is a superstar, but not contemporary. Like,
yeah, I guess not. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Like how
what the criteria was.
Yeah, how in the world? Like, Taylor Swift is pretty contemporary. I
was going to say you can't get more contemporary.
And Shania Twain just did a show, like, Coachella, I think, with Snoop Dogg or somebody. Yeah.
She was with Harry Styles. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she was with Harry Styles, right? Because they've done things together before. So she seems pretty contemporary. I don't know. It was just a weird phrasing of that sentence.
The wording, yeah.
Yeah, but tell me about that. What is this exhibit about, and why would people want to go see it?
So this is through the Grammy Museum. And I found out about my inclusion in it around this time last year.
Okay.
So this has been going on for a long time. And so they asked me to send them, some of my stuff. Mm-hmm. And so there's my Opry dress is in this exhibit.
Oh, wow.
And the very first dress that I wore on the Opry. And
wow.
then...
Did you know that is such a lasting impact on life? That's like the Smithsonian or something.
Oh, I know.
Like, this is why
go
ahead. Go ahead.
It's crazy. Like, every time I think about it, I'm just like, I cannot believe that the little girl from St. Louis has a dress at the Grammy Museum. Like, it's really nuts when you think about it.
That's gonna live forever. I'm stuttering over it because that's so exciting to me. At the end of the day, that lives forever.
Yeah. That
cements forever. And I don't know that I wouldn't have seen it in 2006 or 2007, but you got to, wow, because at the end of the day, you don't have a manager, you're not represented in any way, and you don't really have a label other than yourself.
It's I am like the anti. All the things that are supposed to work and all the things that are supposed to happen, I'm like the opposite of it. And yet, for some reason, it still works. And
you
so
are an outlaw.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm very, I don't want to get mushy right now, but like real talk, I really believe, I don't think I'm special. I don't think that I'm like a unicorn by any stretch of the imagination or anything like that. I just think that when things are supposed to happen, like when God has determined that something is going to happen, it just happens.
Amen. Yeah.
And there's nothing that you can do to derail it. Now, the details of how you get there are, that's man, and that's up to us. Like, you decide how the journey's going to go. Amen. But I really believe that, the overall destination, I think, is already determined. And so that's the only explanation I have, because like I said, it's not like I did anything special or different this year, like the last couple of years. The only thing that I've done is just try to use the platform for other people and to try to amplify and make people aware of other artists and like these other things that are a part of the culture. And
that's exactly how Nashville Hype started. The Nashville Hype started the exact same way, just to let other people know about this, whatever this is, whatever topic, subject, or whatever. But that's a great segue, because you're also very involved And I recall when I met with you, we were talking earlier about at the coffee shop. You've always been involved with educating children in music.
Yeah, I love kids. I mean, I have 2 little girls of my own that I adore, and I just always really liked. I don't know. In a lot of ways, I think of myself as a kid.
Yeah,
so
me too.
Maybe that's what it is. But no, I just think that there's something really special about seeing the world through the eyes of a child, and involving and not talking down to them.
Yeah.
And having my oldest daughter, I got involved in baby music, and I started listening to all this different children's music.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, wow, okay. Because, you think children's music and you're like, okay, the wheels on the bus, great.
Right.
But, like, there's, like, a whole genre of really great music that's being made for children. And so I was just like, I was a little shell-shocked from doing adult music. And so I was just like, well, what's a safe way to make good music, but, like, just have fun?
Right.
And so I was like, I'm going to try this. And, I still have gigs 13 years later from that children's album.
Here recently, one of the things that you were asked to do as far as children is concerned is the North Carolina Public Radio, WUNC.
Yes.
They have a podcast for children called The Story Stables, and they ask you, because you are an educator of children in music and you've been doing it for years, they ask you did you write a song and perform it? Or did you wrote the entire song and perform?
Yeah,
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I did it over like 2 nights. We were in the middle of a tour.
Okay.
And so I was on tour with Kingfish.
Kingfish. Well, I was going to ask you about that as well. Because he's awesome.
And,
he's
amazing.
He's
and
amazing.
He's one of the nicest people ever. He and his whole crew, they're awesome.
I don't want to get sidetracked because we're talking about children.
I know.
But at the same time, and I yelled into the microphone because I got so excited. At the same time, how in the world did you get on a Kingfish tour? You were here in Fort Lauderdale 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, and I was like, holy crap, I missed it.
No, so Kingfish was wanting to take women out. Like he was wanting to make a specific effort to take women artists out. And my name came up in the shuffle, and they were like, I ended up doing the most dates out of all the women that were on the tour, and we had a ball. Like they were very kind. I mean, he's an incredible musician.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
And it was a really, really good time for me and the band. And it was the first tour that I'd been on in 13 years.
That is his album is a result of recording in Nashville. I read that he recorded that in Nashville, and so when your name came up somehow, I'm still astounded by all that you accomplish and all that you can do, but that's because without a manager, but that's because I said earlier, you are a superstar. You have always been a superstar since 2006, and I'm really astounded because you traveled all over the country with Kingfish and played more dates than any other woman on the tour.
Yeah, like I said, I've been exceedingly and extremely blessed.
Where do you go from here?
Well, I'm working on a new album right now.
Okay.
And writing and about to start recording, actually.
Do you write most or all of your own songs, or do people still try and pitch you songs? What is that process like?
I still get pitches.
Yeah.
I still get pitches, and and actually 3 of the things that I'm considering doing on the record right now are pitches. Okay. But I mostly write everything.
Yeah.
For the most part. But yeah, a great song is a great song. It doesn't matter who wrote it.
That is true. So, that is absolutely the truth.
I'll take it.
Yeah. You don't look at it as, we're going to the radio with this, or do you look at it like that? Do you look at?
No, I don't consider radio at all anymore.
Yeah. Radio at some point is going to have to do something, right?
Okay, so radio. I just, radio is very expensive, and to get on radio is ridiculously expensive. I don't think most people realize that. It's like you're looking at like a damn near $1 million undertaking,
right,
to get something on the radio. And I just,
yeah, that is true. People don't realize all that it takes to get into radio.
Yeah. So I just would rather, my strength, I have found over the last 13 years of being an independent artist, my strength lies in live shows and in the recorded music. And so that's what I lean on. I recognize, what I'm good at. and that's our thing. Like the band that I tour with now is incredible. And they are, they're all North Carolina based musicians. Mm-hmm. And at this point we're like family. Most of them I've been playing with for like the past 7 to 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And so they know me really well. They know the music really well.
Right.
And we just gel.
Yeah.
So, we worked really hard on this live show. So I'm not, so I have a lot of confidence in that.
Right.
And that's what, that's what's gotten us through thus far. Like that's what has been my saving grace is the performance. So that's what I would rather, if I'm going to invest money in anything, I like my own personal money, I invested in the show.
Yeah, it's funny because you're streaming on the NashvilleHype.com, the radio station side. And it's the song with Grace, which I love.
Sweet, sweet lovin'.
Yeah, Sweet, sweet lovin'. But I love the song. It's so funny to me. Every time it comes on, and I hear it probably twice a day now when I'm actually streaming my own station just to make sure it works. It's so funny because she starts out the song, and the song is a very adult song.
Yeah, I know. No, I have gotten messages from people about that.
Have you really? It cracks me up.
Yeah, people were like, why would you have your child sing on a song like that?
Oh.
I was just like, I thought it was cute.
It's so cute. Yeah, you think it's so cute and it's so sweet and it's so like, oh my gosh, there's Grace and she's singing sweet, sweet, la, da, da, da. And then all of a sudden you hear the lyrics to that song and you're like,
oh my.
Hey, honey, you got to get out of the room. I mean.
I know. We just were so excited that she did it, and she did it the first time, like in the first take, and so we were so excited. I don't think I really thought about the fact that maybe this isn't a song for her.
Right? Yeah. She goes. I'm ready. Like, go ahead with it. Yeah. Come on, dude, bring it on.
Go on, mama.
Yeah, right. but then you got to leave the room because it's really good. It's really funny, and we stream it on here, but. To go back to what we were just saying, I could stream it 1 billion times, and as an artist, you would make 0.32 cents. So you really do have to concentrate on a live show and record sales and things of that nature, right?
And really, not even record sales anymore. Like,
the
live show, to me, the live show sells the record. And so I do my best sales when people see me live. Yeah. Like when they see it live, then they're like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna buy everything that she's got." Yeah. Like that happens a lot, and like during over tour, like I noticed, the sales popped up because people saw me, and then they were interested in the back catalog. Okay. And like I noticed that it translated into the streaming as well. So. To me, and as an independent artist, I have found that my particular, my mode of making money is the live show. Like that's my bread and butter. Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about being an independent artist is not having a record deal that's a 360, what they call in town, a 360 deal, which means that the artist still pays for everything just like they used to in the old days. But now the label also gets part of your merch and part of your touring and part of your, they get, you know, a part of everything in this new 360 deal. It's not new. It's been around for a decade.
No, I was going to say I was signed for 360. Like it was, yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like it's not, all of this is not sustainable. Like if you want to, and that's the thing that, you know, that's what I'm trying to do as far as like the other projects that I'm involved in, like the other things that I do outside of Color Me Country and outside of the fund and all that. I do a thing called Seeds, and it's designed for independent artists, and it's to talk you through how to do all of these things, either A, by yourself, or B, how to attract the people that will want to, that can do these things for you.
Right.
And because it's not a sustainable model for the record label to have their hand in everything and you have nothing. Like, right. It's just not.
I asked
how many artists can do that?
Yeah, I had Amanda Colleen Williams on the show, and I asked her about, you know, songwriting has changed tremendously because now with Spotify and streaming and everything, you've got 91 people splitting the same dollar. And so the songwriters are really struggling. And I was like, I asked her, I said, do you think it's going to change? And she emphatically, I mean, she's a very non-emphatic person, by the way. She's very kind. But, you know, she emphatically said it has to.
It has to. We can't go on like this. Like I was a part of a lobbying, not lobbying, but I was a part of a meeting with our Raleigh Congresswoman, Congressman Ross, and Congresswoman Ross, and we were talking about this, and just about raising the streaming rate, or at least making it possible for independent artists to negotiate their own third-party deals with the streaming companies like the majors do.
Right.
Because it's just not like, I mean, I'll give you a small anecdote. I was recently put on, at Christmas time, my song Grown Up Christmas List, my version of Grown Up Christmas List was put on, the Country Christmas, Spotify's Country Christmas playlist. And, you know, this song came out in 2000. I think I released it in 2008. And so it's been out in the world forever. And I think at that point, before it made it onto that playlist, it was, we were maybe at like 15,000 spins total, like all time.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, so nothing really like crazy impressive or anything. And then, you know, fast forward, by January, the song had been played almost 600,000 times.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I made, drum roll please.
Oh, hold on.
I made...
Whoops, that's the wrong one. Okay.
I love the sound effects. I made a grand total of $350.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, that's insane, right?
Yeah, so
right.
It's not a sustainable model. It's not going to be it's just not good for the future of music.
It's not healthy. You know, it's not healthy for it.
No, because what ends up happening is, like, another person that was in this meeting was talking about how artists are now trying to write songs specifically to get on playlists. So, like, the quality of the music is changing because people are trying to model it so that they get playlist recognition.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not good.
Yeah, that's not healthy either.
No.
Yeah, when something is,
it's gotta change.
Yeah, when something is invariably broken, you know, you need to stop breaking it, essentially. And if yes. And if artists are doing that, songwriters, and you know, and look, you always write toward, and especially as a professional songwriter, will always try and write towards that radio sound or hit, and that's what they teach in a lot of places, but that's not necessarily the correct way to do it.
No, I mean, it's just like there's room in the market for all that, but like there's not room in the market for everything to be that.
Right. And it's so funny that you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my old roommate Grant played guitar for Taylor Swift. He toured all over the world, and for 5 years he was on every television show and everything. Mm-hmm. And people were like, how can you like Taylor Swift, blah, blah, blah. Well, she sells out stadiums, and stadiums have workers, and workers have families, mm-hmm. and families need food and houses and everything else. And so in my mind, her, Garth Brooks, Kenny Chesney, they can do whatever they want. You know what I mean? Like they can just they're feeding families and feeding people. But the system in Nashville, it's kind of gotten to the point where if you're below that level, it's very hard on $350 with 600,000 streams to feed a family and clothe a family and keep a roof, right?
Yeah, it's damn near impossible.
Yeah.
And so and
not to turn this into a complaint fest, but
no, but it's not. It's just it needs to be fair. Like, for the things that music does for us as a culture and as a society, artists should be treated better. Like, we should be fairly compensated. I'm not asking for above and beyond what anyone else deserves. Like, not at all. All I want, and I think all anybody else wants, is just fair compensation.
Yeah.
When nobody was talking to me, you were. And so, like, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
I spot talent when I see it, and you're definitely the most talented, I think. Even others would say this too. The most talented. I mean, overall scope of just about all of them. There's no question.
Well, I appreciate that.